So we are digging deeper into the mid-air scare last Friday on an Alaska Airlines flight that had to make an emergency landing after a panel blew off after takeoff, leaving a gaping hole in the side of the plane. 171 passengers, including 3 babies and 4 unaccompanied minors, were on board at the time. No one was hurt miraculously. So we learned yesterday the plane was delivered to the airline in October, suggesting the last crew to work on the door panel, referred to as a plug, by the way, was likely not the airline, but the crew that installs door plugs in MAX 9 fuselages, that's Spirit Aero Systems, by the way. So we've also learned in the last 3 days that the plug rolled upward before flying off, and that 4 bolts and 12 connecting points are supposed to really prevent that from happening. The fleet of Boeing 737 MAX 9 jetliners is still grounded. In fact, United and Alaska Airlines just announced that they have canceled flights through Saturday as a result. And just this morning, there are more than 390 flights canceled across the country, more than 500 delays. That is the domino effect of this. And we aren't seeing any major issues here in Jacksonville. News4JAX aviation expert Ed Booth is joining us this morning to help us kind of better understand what we have learned about this scare in the last several days, and of course, most importantly, what's being done to prevent it. Ed, good morning.
Good morning,
Thank you for being
Jen.
here. I appreciate
it's good to
it.
Be here.
So I want to first start. Boeing CEO revealed, of course, this week that bolts in the plug of the Alaska plane had fractured. What does that mean?
That means they weren't tightened properly. Were not torqued down. It's apparent that someone placed the bolts in the proper place, finger tightened a nut, but didn't secure it properly. And this is predictable, and it comes down to human error.
And it's just kind of that simple, isn't it? So you have this emergency airworthiness directive that you found, an FAA aviation safety document. What does this tell you?
Well, first of all, the FAA certifies airplanes as safe to fly. And an airline is not permitted to fly an airplane that is not certified by the FAA. The FAA reserves the right to modify the certification parameters and in extreme instances ground the airplane until these are complied with. They do this by the way of documents known as airworthiness directives. This one, issued on Saturday, January the 6th, prevents further flight of this type of airplane. There are 177 of them in service before certain inspections are performed. We have some idea of what the inspections are, but the FAA is apparently still working on the full scope of the inspection that an airplane must be submitted to before it can be returned to flight.
I think what's interesting also about this, when it says FAA's determination, it says it's determined the unsafe condition described previously is likely to exist or develop in other products of the same type design. I mean, there's a real concern evident by the grounding that more planes could have this same problem with the bolts not being tightened?
Correct. This is a problem that we see from time to time in aviation, where well-intentioned people install a bolt but forget to go back and tighten it.
You know, I think I just assumed, because this is Boeing is so enormous, and they've been doing this for so many years, that there's a machine that does this, but clearly not.
Machines are used to drill holes and rivet big subassemblies, but this type of custom installation work is left to humans, and this is what can happen sometime. You also have to remember the production rate of these airplanes. They're building 42 a month, year in and year out, and there's a lot of pressure to complete a particular fuselage because there's one coming right behind it. So hurry up is the norm, and sometimes things fall through the cracks.
Yeah, which is frightening to think about, all of us who fly on planes, right, to see loved ones or go on vacation. You actually have some pictures that I want to share with our with our viewers, and there is a system that can be used to ensure that bolts have been tightened, you know, for anybody who's kind of moving along here and maintaining. And these photos, now this is not used though in commercial flights. Can you explain what we're seeing here?
There is a compound called marking compound available at any auto parts store that allows a mechanic, after they properly tighten a bolt, to put a mark on the side of the bolt. Number one, to tell them that they have done it properly, and number two, you can go back months, years later, and look at that stripe and tell if the bolt head is moved. And it's a very simple device, doesn't cost anything, that would allow an inspector to come along and see that things were done properly.
So why isn't this used by everyone?
Extra work, perhaps, a presumption that things were put together properly to begin with.
So there are, I'm sure, many people who saw what happened and are worried about it happening on their flight. Is there any way to know when you're on a plane or, you know, taking your seat, whether or not you're next to a door plug?
There's no way visually. There are a number of internet sites that track the most desirable seats in an airplane, the ones with the most leg room for a particular airline's model. I suspect they may get into the business of telling you where these are. That certainly would be a market for that.
I guess that you just make an assumption that someone is going behind maintenance workers and making sure through an inspection process that things have been tightened. Is that not the case?
It is the case. There are strict quality control procedures in place, and it apparently didn't happen in this instance. There will be an investigation. A particular person will likely be identified. It would be my guess it happened at shift change or something like that.
So would you feel comfortable getting on a commercial airliner now?
I would. It's an extremely safe way to travel. No safer place to be than in the cabin of a commercial jet. Tens of millions of people fly every month. We go year in, year out without anyone being injured or killed. So it's an extremely safe form of transportation.
Despite what you have revealed to us this morning.
These accidents allow us to improve safety. That's how we learn in aviation, and this won't happen again.
Ed Booth, thank you for your perspective and your insight. These pictures are fantastic in terms of having a better understanding of what could happen and probably should.